Maya Williams had scrubbed so many toilets in her life that she could tell you the brand of porcelain by the sound it made when you tapped it with a brush. Tonight, standing in the foyer of the Blackwood estate, she was pretty sure she was looking at fixtures that cost more than her entire apartment building. The silence in the house was different, too. Not the comfortable quiet of a home at rest, but the heavy, watchful silence of a place holding its breath. Her phone buzzed. Another text from Marcus, her little brother. "Did you pay them yet?" She didn't answer. The debt collectors didn't care that Marcus was 17 and had fallen for a crypto scam. They didn't care that Maya was working 3 jobs to keep him from ending up in a situation that would destroy his future. All they cared about was the $5,000 he owed, and the interest that kept piling on like snow in a blizzard she couldn't shovel fast enough. Before we go any further, hit that subscribe button right now and drop a comment telling us where you're watching from and what time it is. We reply to every single one. Now back to Maya's night from hell. The estate manager, Mrs. Chen, had called her at the last minute. The regular girl had quit without notice, and they needed someone for a quick 3-hour clean before the owner returned from overseas. $300 cash for 3 hours of work. Maya had said yes before Mrs. Chen finished the sentence. She didn't ask questions. People who asked questions didn't get called back. The house smelled like old money and fresh lilies. Maya moved through the rooms with the efficiency of someone who had learned that speed and invisibility were survival skills. She was a ghost. That's what she always told Marcus. When you're cleaning someone's home, you're not really there. They talk on the phone like you're furniture. They leave documents on the counter. They forget you exist the moment you leave the room. She was polishing a silver platter in the kitchen, her reflection distorted in its surface when she heard it. A sound that didn't belong. Not the creak of an old house settling or the hum of expensive appliances. This was rhythmic, metallic, deliberate. 3 taps, pause. 3 taps, pause. 3 taps. Maya's hand stilled on the platter. She knew that rhythm. Everyone from her neighborhood knew that rhythm. It was the sound someone made when they wanted to be found, when they needed to be found. The sound was coming from below her feet, from somewhere deep in the belly of this sleeping mansion. And against every instinct that told her to finish her shift and get out, Maya Williams set down the silver platter and walked toward the basement door. The basement stairs didn't creak. Of course they didn't. Rich people had stairs that knew how to keep secrets. Maya's hand found the railing, cold brass, that probably cost more per inch than she made in a day, and she descended into a darkness that felt wrong. Not scary movie wrong, but calculated wrong, professional wrong. The kind of darkness that came with a security system and reinforced doors. The sound stopped the moment her foot hit the bottom step. Maya froze, her phone flashlight cutting a thin beam through the black. The basement wasn't what she expected. No dusty boxes or forgotten furniture. This was a wine cellar, climate-controlled and pristine, with bottles that probably cost more than her brother's debt, racked in perfect rows on both sides. The walls were stone, the floor polished concrete, and at the far end, between the racks, was a door that looked like it belonged in a bank vault. She should leave. She knew she should leave. But that sound, those 3 taps, they meant something. They meant someone was trapped. Someone needed help. And Maya's fatal flaw, the thing that had gotten her into more trouble than she could count, was that she couldn't walk away from someone who needed help. Not when her own brother had needed her. Not when her mother had been sick. Not ever. Maya crossed the cellar, her footsteps absorbed by the expensive silence. Up close, the door was even more intimidating. Brushed steel, electronic keypad, the kind of lock that cost serious money. But next to it, barely visible in the dim emergency lighting, was something that didn't match the high-tech setup. A smear, dark and fresh. Blood. Her pulse hammered in her throat. She pressed her ear to the cold metal and listened. Nothing at first. Then, so quiet she almost missed it, the sound of breathing. Ragged, pained. Someone was definitely in there. Maya pulled out her phone and checked the time. She had 2 hours left on her shift. Mrs. Chen wouldn't be back until morning. The house was empty except for her and whoever was behind this door. She thought about calling the police, but something stopped her. Blood on the outside of a panic room meant someone had been hurt and locked inside. Blood on the outside also meant whoever did the locking might still be around. She examined the keypad. 6 digits. Could be anything. But there was something else. A small port underneath, the kind used for emergency overrides. Maya had grown up in a neighborhood where knowing how to pick a lock was as essential as knowing how to ride a bike. Electronic locks were trickier, but not impossible. Not if you knew what you were looking for. She knelt down, pulled a bobby pin from her hair, and bent it into shape with her teeth. Her hands were steady. They always were when she was fixing something, cleaning something, solving something. The port panel popped off easier than she expected, revealing a simple mechanical backup. Rich people and their fail-safes. They built fortresses, but always left themselves a way out. The lock clicked. The sound echoed through the cellar like a gunshot. Maya's breath caught as she pulled the heavy door open, and the smell hit her first. Blood and sweat, and something else. Fear. The beam of her flashlight swept across the small room and landed on a man slumped against the far wall, his wrists bound in chains that were bolted to the floor. He looked up at her, and Maya forgot how to breathe. Even half dead, even with blood soaking through his white shirt and his face pale with pain, the man radiating danger. His eyes were dark and calculating, tracking her every movement like a predator, deciding whether she was prey or threat. There was a cut above his eyebrow, dried blood crusting down the side of his face, and his hands where the chains held them were raw from struggling. "Close the door," he said. His English was perfect, but there was an accent underneath, smooth and controlled, even through obvious pain. "If they hear you, you're dead." Maya's hand was still on the door handle. Every survival instinct she had was screaming at her to run, to slam this door shut, and pretend she never heard those 3 taps. But she didn't move, couldn't move, because underneath the danger in his eyes, underneath the blood and the chains, she saw something she recognized. Betrayal, the kind that came from people you trusted. "Who are you?" she whispered. His laugh was bitter, barely more than a breath. "Someone who made the mistake of trusting family. Now close the door before we both die tonight." Maya stepped inside instead. The panic room was small, maybe 8 by 8, lined with shelves that held emergency supplies. Water bottles, first aid kit, protein bars. Everything you'd need to survive being locked in your own fortress, except a way out when the people with the keys wanted you dead. "You're insane," he said, watching her kneel beside him. "Do you know what you've just walked into?" A man chained in a wine cellar. Maya examined the locks on his wrists. Heavy duty, the kind that needed a key or bolt cutters. "I'm guessing you didn't lock yourself in here." "My second in command did. Shin Jae. He's been planning this for months. I was supposed to be on a plane to Seoul tonight. Instead, I'm here, waiting for him to decide whether to put a bullet in my head or let me starve." He studied her face, her uniform, the bobby pin still in her hand. "You're the maid." It wasn't a question. Maya nodded anyway. "Last-minute shift, lucky me." "Not lucky. Convenient. They probably picked tonight specifically because they knew the regular staff would be gone. No witnesses, no complications. Just you, and you were supposed to clean up and leave without ever knowing I was down here. He tilted his head, and despite the pain he must be in, his expression was sharp. But you heard me. 3 taps, Maya said. Pause. 3 taps. That's SOS in my neighborhood. Means someone needs help. Something shifted in his expression. Not quite respect, but close. What's your name? Maya Williams. And before I do anything else, you need to tell me what I'm dealing with. Who are you really? He was quiet for a long moment, his dark eyes weighing her like he was calculating odds. Finally, he spoke. My name is Kang Dae-hyun. I run an organization that your police would call a crime syndicate. I control shipping routes, information networks, and enough money to make problems disappear. Or at least I did, until tonight. Now I'm chained in my own basement while my empire burns. Maya rocked back on her heels. Of course the universe would put her in a room with a crime boss on the night she needed a clean $300. I should leave. Yes, you should. But neither of them moved. Maya thought about Marcus, about the debt collectors who'd already started making threats. She thought about her mother's medical bills that still haunted her credit score. She thought about the fact that in 2 hours, Mrs. Chen would come back, and if Dae-hyun's people found him still alive, they'd know someone had been here. They'd check security footage. They'd find her. If I leave you here, Maya said slowly, and they find out I was in this house tonight, I'm dead anyway, aren't I? Dae-hyun's smile was cold. Finally, you understand. Maya stood up, her mind racing through possibilities like she was solving one of those impossible math problems Marcus used to bring home from school. Leave Dae-hyun and hope his people never connected her to tonight. Free him and become an accessory to whatever war was about to break out. Or the option she wasn't ready to think about yet, the one where she was already in too deep and didn't know it. I need to think, she said, backing toward the door. I need to... The sound of voices from upstairs froze them both. Male voices, speaking Korean, footsteps moving through the house above their heads. Maya's blood turned to ice. Dae-hyun's expression didn't change, but his body tensed like a wire pulled taut. Get out, he whispered urgently. Now, hide. Maya killed her phone's flashlight and slipped out of the panic room, easing the heavy door closed behind her. The voices were getting closer, accompanied by footsteps on the stairs. She had maybe 10 seconds. The wine racks on the left side of the cellar extended deeper into shadow. She squeezed between 2 rows, pressing herself flat against the cold stone wall, making herself small, making herself invisible, a ghost. 2 men entered the cellar. The emergency lights cast their shadows long and distorted across the floor. One was tall and lean, wearing an expensive suit that probably cost more than Maya's car. The other was built like a boxer, shorter but solid, his hand resting casually on something at his hip. A gun, Maya realized. He was carrying a gun. I still say we should have done it tonight, the boxer said. His English was heavily accented. Clean, simple, 1 bullet. Shin-jae wants him to suffer first. The tall one stopped in front of the vault door, checking the electronic display. Wants him to think about every choice he made, every person he trusted. Besides, we need the account numbers. He won't give them up if he's dead. Maya's heart was pounding so loud, she was sure they could hear it. She pressed harder against the wall, barely breathing, watching through the gap between wine bottles as the tall man punched a code into the keypad. 6 digits, too fast for her to see. The lock disengaged with a heavy click. They opened the door. Maya couldn't see Dae-hyun from her angle, but she heard his voice, rough and mocking. "Come to check if I'm still breathing, Min-jun? How thoughtful. Tell Shin-jae I'll be sure to thank him personally when I get out of here." "You're not getting out." Min-jun's voice was flat. "In 3 days, when you've had time to really think about your situation, Shin-jae will come. He'll ask you nicely for the offshore accounts. You'll refuse. Then he'll ask less nicely. Eventually, you'll tell him everything, and then you'll die. The only variable is how much you suffer in between." "And you think my people won't notice I'm missing?" The boxer laughed. "Your people think you're in Seoul, meeting with the Yakuza. By the time anyone realizes you never arrived, we'll have everything we need. Your operation, your connections, your money. Shin-jae's already made the calls. The transition of power will be seamless." "Bold of you to assume Shin-jae can hold what I built." "He doesn't need to hold it," Min-jun said. "He just needs to sell it. We already have buyers lined up. The Russians are particularly interested in your shipping routes. Everything gets liquidated, everyone gets paid, and you become a cautionary tale about trusting the wrong people." There was a pause. Maya heard the sound of a fist connecting with flesh, a grunt of pain. Her hands clenched around a wine bottle, useless and furious. "That's for making us wait 3 days, the boxer said. "Sweet dreams, boss." They left, their footsteps echoing back up the stairs, their voices fading into the silence of the house above. Maya waited, counting to 100 in her head, then 100 more. When she was sure they were gone, she slipped out from between the wine racks and approached the vault door. It was still open a crack, and through it she could see Dae-hyun's silhouette, still chained, now with fresh blood on his face. 3 days, Maya whispered, pushing the door open. "They're giving you 3 days." Dae-hyun looked at her, and for the first time she saw something other than cold calculation in his eyes. Surprise, maybe even relief. "You stayed." "I didn't have much choice." Maya knelt beside him again, examining his face. The boxer had split his lip, and there was a new bruise forming along his jaw. "But I heard everything. They think you're in Seoul. They're planning to torture you for account numbers and then kill you. And if I understand correctly, I just became a witness to a coup." "Not just a witness." Dae-hyun's voice was quiet but certain. "An accomplice. The moment you opened this door, you chose a side. There's no going back now." Maya thought about Marcus, about her carefully constructed life of invisibility and survival, about how one shift, one moment of curiosity, had just burned it all down. She should be terrified. She probably was terrified. But underneath the fear was something else, something she hadn't felt in years. Purpose. The clarity that came from knowing exactly what needed to be done, even if it was impossible. "Then I guess we'd better not waste time," she said, "because in 3 days when they come back, we're both going to be long gone." Make sure you hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below, telling us where you're watching from and what time it is right now. We reply to everyone. You're going to want to see what happens next, because Maya's about to do something that will change everything. Chapter 5 is coming, and trust me, you don't want to miss it. Maya had exactly 1 hour and 47 minutes left on her shift before Mrs. Chen expected her gone. 1 hour and 47 minutes to figure out how to free a chained crime boss from his own basement without getting them both killed. She stared at the heavy shackles on Dae-hyun's wrists, then at the bolt anchoring the chains to the floor. Both required tools she didn't have, and strength she couldn't fake. "There's a toolbox," Dae-hyun said, reading her thoughts. In the mechanical room, 2 doors down from the wine cellar. But the chains are titanium core. You'd need industrial bolt cutters, and those are in the garage, 3 floors up. Can you walk? He tested his legs, wincing. If I have to. The beating they gave me before locking me in here cracked at least 2 ribs. But I functioned with worse. Maya didn't want to know what qualified as worse. She stood, dusting off her uniform, her mind already mapping the house layout from her earlier cleaning route. Stay quiet. If I'm not back in 20 minutes, assume I got caught. And if you get caught? Then you die down here, and I die somewhere else. Motivating, right? She slipped out of the panic room before he could respond, moving through the wine cellar with the practiced silence of someone who'd learned that noise meant attention, and attention meant trouble. The mechanical room door was locked, but the master key Mrs. Chen had given her worked. Inside, the air hummed with the sound of expensive machinery, keeping the mansion's climate perfect. She found the toolbox exactly where Dae-hyun said it would be, industrial and heavy. No bolt cutters, but there were other things. A hammer, wrenches, a crowbar. Maya grabbed what she could carry and was about to leave when she heard it. Footsteps, right outside the door. Her body moved on instinct, diving behind a water heater as the door swung open. Light flooded the small space. I'm telling you, I heard something. It was the boxer from earlier, his voice irritated. Check the whole basement. Boss said no loose ends. Maya pressed herself into the shadow, tools clutched against her chest, not breathing. The man's flashlight beam swept across the room, pausing on the open toolbox. Her heart stopped. He stepped closer, his hand moving to his hip with a gun rested. 3 more steps, and he'd see her. 2 more steps. 1 more step. A phone rang. The boxer stopped, pulling out his cell. Yeah? A pause. Are you serious? All the way in Pacifica? Another pause, this one longer. Fine, I'm coming. But if this is another false alarm like last week, I'm done with perimeter duty. He left, still grumbling into his phone, and Maya allowed herself to breathe again. Her hands were shaking now, the adrenaline hitting her system like a drug. She waited until his footsteps faded completely, then grabbed the tools and ran back to the wine cellar, her heart hammering against her ribs. Dae-hyun's eyes widened slightly when he saw her. You made it. Your guy almost caught me. Maya dumped the tools beside him. They're checking the basement. We don't have much time. Then don't waste it on the chains. We need to focus on getting me medical supplies first. There's a safe room on the 2nd floor, disguised as a linen closet. Code is 8372. Inside you'll find first aid supplies, clean clothes, and a burner phone. I need all of it. Maya stared at him. You want me to go upstairs? Where your people are actively looking for intruders? I want you to use what makes you invisible. Dae-hyun's voice was calm, almost hypnotic. You're a maid. You belong here. They're looking for threats, not staff. Keep your head down, move with purpose, and they'll see what they expect to see. Nothing. It was insane. It was also the closest thing to a plan they had. Maya stood, smoothing down her uniform, becoming the ghost again. The woman who cleaned other people's houses and absorbed their secrets like the walls absorbed their voices. She'd spent her whole life being invisible. Tonight, that invisibility might be the only thing keeping them alive. She took the service stairs, the narrow passages designed for staff to move through the house without being seen by the people who mattered. The house had stopped holding its breath. Now it felt like it was watching, waiting to see if she'd survive the next 10 minutes. 2nd floor. The hallway was empty, but she could hear voices from somewhere nearby, speaking rapid Korean, planning, coordinating, taking over an empire one room at a time. The linen closet was exactly where Dae-hyun said it would be, innocuous and ordinary, except for the electronic keypad hidden behind a false panel. Maya punched in the code. The back wall of the closet swung open, revealing a space barely bigger than a phone booth. Inside were things that made her stomach turn. Passports with different names and Dae-hyun's face, stacks of cash in multiple currencies, 3 guns, and yes, medical supplies. Serious medical supplies, the kind used for treating gunshot wounds and stab injuries. The kind that said this wasn't Dae-hyun's first time being betrayed. Maya grabbed what she needed, stuffing supplies into a cleaning caddy she'd left on the 2nd floor earlier. To anyone watching, she'd look like she was just restocking supplies. Invisible, irrelevant. A ghost moving through a house that didn't see her as human enough to be a threat. She'd resented that invisibility her whole life. Tonight, she was grateful for it. She made it back to the wine cellar without incident, her legs shaking from adrenaline and relief. Dae-hyun was exactly where she'd left him, his eyes tracking her movements as she knelt beside him and opened the first aid kit. His shirt was soaked with blood, old and new, and when she carefully unbuttoned it, she saw the damage, bruises blooming across his ribs, cuts that needed stitches, the systematic brutality of people who knew how to hurt someone without killing them too quickly. "You've done this before," Dae-hyun observed, as Maya cleaned the worst of the wounds with steady hands. "My mom was a nurse before she got sick, taught me the basics." Maya didn't mention that she'd also patched up Marcus more times than she could count, after fights at school or stupid mistakes in their neighborhood. "This is going to hurt." "Everything hurts. Do what you need to do." She worked quickly, efficiently, cleaning and bandaging while Dae-hyun sat perfectly still, his breathing controlled despite the pain. When she finished, she sat back and looked at him, really looked at him. Without the blood and the immediate crisis, she could see what made him dangerous. It wasn't just the cold intelligence in his eyes or the obvious physical strength. It was the absolute certainty in how he carried himself, even chained and beaten. The kind of certainty that came from years of making decisions that affected hundreds of lives and never looking back. "Why did they betray you?" Maya asked quietly. Dae-hyun was silent for a moment, his eyes distant. "Because I tried to go legitimate, shift the organization away from the uglier aspects of our business. Shin Jae and the others, they didn't want change. They wanted profit, and morality was getting in the way." He looked at her. "That probably doesn't make me any better in your eyes." "It makes you human," Maya said. "Complicated, but human." "And you? What makes Maya Williams risk her life for a stranger?" She thought about that, about Marcus and her mother, and every person she'd ever tried to save from their own mistakes. "I don't know how to walk away when someone needs help. It's a problem." "Tonight," Dae-hyun said, "it's my salvation." Maya checked her phone. 53 minutes left. Mrs. Chen would arrive, expect a clean house and a departed maid, and instead find evidence of an intruder who'd accessed restricted areas. The security footage would show everything. Maya's face, her route through the house, the moment she opened the panic room door. They'd have her name from the employment agency within an hour, her address within 2. Marcus would be alone by morning. "We need to move now," Maya said, standing. "The chains will have to wait. Can you walk if I support you?" Dae-hyun tested his weight, using the wall to pull himself up. The chains clinked, still bolted to the floor, but there was enough length for him to stand. "How far?" "Service stairs to the ground floor, through the kitchen to the garage. Maybe 200 feet total, but will be exposed in the kitchen. Maya grabbed the crowbar from the toolbox. If we run into anyone, I talk first. You're injured, staff. I found you in the basement. We're getting you to a hospital. Can you play helpless? His smile was sharp despite the pain. I've spent 20 years making sure I never had to. But for you, Maya Williams, I'll try. They moved slowly, Dae-hyun's arm across her shoulders, his weight heavier than she expected. The chains dragged behind them, scraping against concrete with a sound that made Maya's teeth ache. Every step was measured, every breath calculated. They reached the service stairs, that narrow passage where maids and cooks and drivers moved through the lives of the wealthy without ever touching them. The stairs were steep, designed for young legs and desperate efficiency. Dae-hyun's breathing got harder with each step, short gasps that told Maya his ribs were worse than he was letting on. Halfway up, he stumbled. Maya caught him, her back screaming in protest, and they froze as voices echoed from somewhere above. Korean, getting closer. Closet, Dae-hyun whispered, nodding to a small door barely visible in the shadows. Supply closet, now. Maya dragged them both inside, putting the door closed just as footsteps passed. The closet was tiny, barely big enough for two people, filled with cleaning supplies that smelled like her entire life. Bleach and lemon polish, and the particular scent of other people's dirt. They were pressed together in the darkness, Dae-hyun's blood seeping through the bandages onto her uniform, his breath hot against her hair. If they open this door, he said quietly, I need you to run. Don't look back. Don't try to help. Just run. That's not happening. Maya, I said it's not happening. We both get out or neither of us does. I'm done arguing about this. The footsteps paused. Right outside. Maya held her breath, her hand tight on the crowbar, knowing it would be useless against trained killers, but holding it anyway. The door handle started to turn. Then a phone rang. The footsteps moved away. The voice faded down the corridor, annoyed and distracted. Maya counted to 30 before she dared to breathe again. That was too close, she whispered. It's going to get closer. Dae-hyun shifted, wincing. The garage is monitored, cameras everywhere. The moment we step into view, they'll know. Then we don't step into view. Maya's mind was racing, putting together pieces of information from her earlier sweep of the house. The garage has a service entrance, small door, northeast corner, used for bringing in deliveries without tracking dirt through the main house. I saw it when I was taking out trash. Cameras? Pointed at the main doors and the cars, not at the service entrance. Rich people don't think about side doors. They think about grand entrances and expensive exits. Dae-hyun looked at her with something that might have been respect. You notice things. I'm a maid. Noticing things is how I stay employed. Maya opened the closet door carefully, checking the corridor. Empty. Come on, we have maybe 40 minutes before this all falls apart. They moved faster now, desperation overriding caution, through the service stairs to the ground floor, past the kitchen where Maya had polished that silver platter a lifetime ago. The house felt different now, hostile and aware, like it knew they were trying to escape and was closing in. Maya could hear movement from the upper floors. More voices, more footsteps. The usurpers consolidating their power, while their deposed king bled out in a maid's arms. The service entrance to the garage was locked, but Maya's master key worked here too. The door opened into dimness and the smell of expensive machinery. The garage was massive, lined with cars that cost more than Maya would make in her entire life. Mercedes, BMW, a Bentley that gleamed like a dark promise. And in the corner, exactly where she remembered it, the service door. Small, unmonitored, forgotten. Which car? Maya whispered. Dae-hyun scanned the options, his eyes calculating. The Tesla, third from the left. Key fob is in my pocket, assuming they didn't take it. He fumbled, his hand still chained, and produced a slim black fob. They took my phone, my wallet, my watch, but they left the car key. Sloppy. Or they assumed you'd be dead before you could use it. That was their first mistake. Dae-hyun's voice was cold now, the pain pushed aside by something harder. Anger. Calculation. The return of the man who'd built an empire on knowing exactly when to strike back. Their second mistake was underestimating you. Maya helped him across the garage, staying low, keeping to the shadows between the cars. The Tesla chirped softly as Dae-hyun unlocked it. Maya opened the passenger door, helping him inside, then ran around to the driver's side. The interior was all leather and technology, more computer than car, with a dashboard that looked like something from a spaceship. "I've never driven anything like this," Maya admitted, staring at the controls. "It drives itself if you need it to. But right now, I need you to drive manually. Autonomous mode logs GPS data. Manual doesn't." Dae-hyun leaned back, his face pale, blood seeping through the bandages. "The gate code is 7792. Punch it when we reach the exit. After that, drive anywhere but a hospital. They'll have people watching every emergency room in the city." Maya started the car. It hummed to life, silent and powerful, ready to launch them into whatever came next. Her hands were shaking on the steering wheel. Everything in her life up until this moment had been about staying small, staying safe, staying invisible. Now she was about to drive a stolen Tesla with a wounded crime boss through a city that wanted them both dead. "Maya," Dae-hyun's voice cut through her spiral. "Breathe. You've gotten us this far. You can get us through the gate." She nodded, put the car in drive, and headed for the exit. The garage door opened smoothly, revealing the long driveway that wound down from the hilltop estate. No alarms yet, no shouting. They might actually make it. Maya pressed the accelerator, feeling the Tesla respond with instant, terrifying power. They were 50 feet from the gate when the lights came on. Floodlights, everywhere, turning night into day and exposing them completely. Maya slammed on the brakes, the Tesla stopping so smoothly it felt wrong, like the car was mocking the chaos erupting around them. Men poured out of the house, at least 6 of them, weapons drawn. The boxer from earlier was leading them, his gun already aimed at the windshield. Behind him, Min-jun was shouting into a phone, his face twisted with rage. "Reverse," Dae-hyun said, his voice deadly calm. "Back into the garage, now." Maya threw the car into reverse, her hands slick with sweat on the wheel. The Tesla shot backward with that same unnerving silence, gliding past the advancing men as bullets sparked off the driveway where they'd been seconds before. She didn't think, didn't plan, just acted on pure instinct, honed from years of moving fast through other people's spaces without being seen. The garage door was still open. Maya aimed for it, praying she wouldn't hit anything expensive on the way. They cleared the threshold as more gunfire erupted, bullets punching through the closing door with sounds like angry hornets. Maya spun the wheel, parking them behind a concrete support column, her breath coming in ragged gasps. "They know," she said uselessly. "They know we're trying to escape." "Then we don't escape. Not yet." Dae-hyun's eyes were tracking the garage layout, calculating angles and distances like he was planning a chess move, instead of a survival strategy. How many entrances? 3. Main garage door, service entrance, and a connecting door to the house. Maya's mind was racing ahead of her words. They'll cover all of them. We're trapped. Trapped is relative. Dae-hyun looked at her. You said you grew up in a rough neighborhood. You know chemistry? Basic. Why? Because you've been carrying around weapons all night and didn't even know it. He nodded toward her cleaning caddy, still sitting in the Tesla's back seat, full of supplies she'd grabbed earlier. Bleach, ammonia, rubbing alcohol. In the right combinations, those aren't cleaning supplies. They're chaos. Maya stared at the caddy, then at Dae-hyun, understanding dawning cold and clear. You want me to make chemical weapons out of household cleaners? I want you to make a distraction. Smoke, confusion. Something that gives us 30 seconds of cover to get through that service door before they can regroup. His voice softened slightly. I'm not asking you to hurt anyone, just to blind them long enough for us to disappear. Maya thought about Marcus, about going home, about the life she'd been trying so hard to protect that was already gone the moment she opened that panic room door. She grabbed the caddy, her hands steady again, and started sorting through bottles like she was preparing for any other cleaning job. Bleach and ammonia makes chloramine gas, she said, her mother's voice echoing in her memory from the one time Maya had almost made that mistake as a kid. Toxic. We'd need ventilation or we'd poison ourselves. Rubbing alcohol and bleach? Chloroform, also toxic, also stupid in an enclosed space. Maya kept sorting, her mind working through chemistry she'd learned in community college classes she could barely afford. Then she saw it, the answer sitting innocuous among the cleaning supplies. But rubbing alcohol, hydrogen peroxide, and this drain cleaner will make a smoke bomb. Hot, thick smoke that'll set off every fire alarm in this place and fill the garage faster than they can react. How long do you need? 2 minutes to mix it, 30 seconds for the reaction to start. Maya was already moving, her body in that efficient cleaning mode. But instead of scrubbing toilets, she was measuring chemicals into a metal mop bucket. When I light this, we run. No hesitation. The smoke will be dense, but it won't last long. Dae-hyun watched her work, and Maya could feel his attention like weight. You're remarkable, you know that? I'm desperate. There's a difference. She finished mixing, her heart pounding. The bucket was already warming up, the chemical reaction building. Get ready. This is going to be loud and bright and absolutely insane. The connecting door from the house burst open. Min-jun and 3 others, guns raised, spreading out to flank them. Maya didn't wait. She grabbed the lighter from her pocket, the one she'd been carrying since Marcus started smoking, and she'd been trying to quit. She lit a rag soaked in alcohol and dropped it into the bucket. The reaction was immediate and violent. Thick white smoke exploded upward, billowing out in waves that filled the garage in seconds. Fire alarms shrieked. The sprinkler system engaged, adding water to the chemical chaos. Men were shouting in Korean, coughing, their visibility reduced to nothing. Maya grabbed Dae-hyun's arm and ran. They hit the service door at full speed, Maya's master key already in her hand. Behind them, the smoke was so thick she could barely see the Tesla they'd left behind. The door opened, and they spilled out into the night, cold air hitting Maya's face like a slap. She could hear shouting from inside, confusion and anger, but they had their 30 seconds of chaos. The service entrance opened onto a side path, narrow and dark, leading down the hill away from the main driveway. Maya had noticed it during her initial cleaning sweep, filed it away as irrelevant. Now it was salvation. She half-carried Dae-hyun down the path, his chains scraping against stone, his breathing labored. Behind them, the garage alarms were still screaming, and through the smoke, she could see the glow of emergency lights. They reached the edge of the property, where the manicured lawn gave way to wild hillside. A service road, barely more than a dirt path, wound down through scrub brush and expensive isolation. No cars, no witnesses, just darkness and the distant glow of San Francisco below them. "They'll figure out we didn't take the car," Dae-hyun said, leaning heavily against a tree. "They'll search the grounds, 5 minutes, maybe 10. Then we keep moving." Maya looked at him, at the blood still seeping through his shirt, at the chains still binding his wrists. "Can you make it down this hill?" "Do I have a choice?" "No. Then I can make it." He pushed off from the tree, grimacing. "There's a safe house in the Mission District. If we can get there, I have resources, money, bolt cutters, people I can still trust. That's miles from here. Then we'd better start walking." They moved down the hillside like ghosts, two desperate people fleeing an empire that wanted them erased. Behind them, Maya could hear vehicles starting, orders being shouted, a manhunt beginning. She thought about her apartment, about the life she'd been living just 4 hours ago, about how one shift had destroyed everything, and somehow, impossibly, given her something she'd never had before. Purpose. The feeling that she mattered, that she was more than invisible. "Maya," Dae-hyun said as they reached the bottom of the hill, where the service road met actual pavement. "When this is over, when I've dealt with Shin Jae and reclaimed what's mine, you'll have whatever you want, whatever you need. I don't forget debts." "I just want my brother to be safe," Maya said, "and maybe to never clean another toilet, as long as I live." Done. They kept walking into the darkness, two survivors bound together by the trail and chemicals and the strange alchemy of one impossible night. They'd made it 3 blocks when Maya realized they had a bigger problem than the men hunting them. Dae-hyun was fading. Not dramatically, not with complaints or theatrical collapse, but with the quiet shutdown of a body that had taken too much damage and was finally admitting defeat. His steps were getting shorter, his breathing shallower. The arm across her shoulders was getting heavier with each block. "We need to find a car," Maya said, her own legs burning from supporting his weight. "You're not going to make it to the Mission District on foot. No hospitals, no police. That limits our options." Dae-hyun's voice was tight with pain. "There's a parking garage 2 blocks north, private, expensive, the kind where rich people leave their cars for weeks while they travel. Security is minimal after midnight." "You want me to steal a car from a parking garage?" "I want you to borrow a car from people who won't miss it for days." He managed a weak smile. "Consider it an extended test drive." Maya had never stolen anything in her life, beyond office supplies from jobs that didn't pay her enough, but tonight had already shattered every rule she'd lived by. What was one more crime on top of conspiracy to aid a fugitive? She adjusted her grip on Dae-hyun and changed direction, heading north. The parking garage was exactly what he'd described. 5 stories of concrete and expensive vehicles, with a single attendant booth that was empty at this hour. The gate arm was down, but there was a pedestrian entrance around the side. Maya dragged Dae-hyun through it, into the echoing shadows of the first level. "Top floor," Dae-hyun said. "Long-term parking. That's where you'll find cars that have been sitting for a while." They took the elevator, Maya praying it wouldn't break down or trigger some alarm. The top floor was dimly lit and almost empty. A handful of cars sat covered in dust. Maya spotted what she needed immediately. A black Honda Accord, practical and invisible, the kind of car no one looked at twice. She approached it, then realized she had no idea how to break into a modern car. "The chains," Dae-hyun said, reading her hesitation. "Use them to break the driver's side window. Small point of impact, quick strike. The alarm will go off, but will be gone before anyone responds." Maya looked at the heavy chain still binding his wrists, then at his pale face. "This is going to hurt you." "Everything hurts. Do it." She wrapped the chain around her hand, feeling the weight of it, the cold metal that had held a king prisoner in his own kingdom. Then she swung, hard and fast, driving the chain into the window. The glass spider-webbed, then shattered inward with a sound like breaking promises. The car alarm screamed into the night. Maya reached through, unlocked the door, and shoved Dae-hyun into the passenger seat. He collapsed against the leather, his eyes closing. Maya dove into the driver's seat and stared at the steering column, her hands shaking. She'd seen movies, heard stories, but the actual mechanics of hot-wiring a car were something she'd never learned. "Under the steering column," Dae-hyun said, without opening his eyes. "Panel should pop off with enough force. Red wire and brown wire twisted together starts the ignition. Green wire and black wire together engages the starter." "How do you know this?" "I grew up stealing cars in Seoul before I figured out it was more profitable to own the people who owned the cars." He opened one eye. "You're running out of time. The alarm's been going for 30 seconds. Maya ripped the panel off, revealing a tangle of wires that looked nothing like the neat, color-coded system Dae-hyun had described. She grabbed what looked like red and brown, twisted them together, and the dashboard lights flickered to life. Then she found green and black, touched them together, and the engine roared. The alarm cut off. Maya threw the car into drive and floored it, the Accord responding with surprising power. They shot down the parking garage ramp, tires squealing, heading for the exit. The gate arm was down. Maya didn't slow. She aimed for it and punched through, the wooden arm splintering across the hood as they burst onto the street. Behind them, she could see a security guard running out of a back office, phone in hand. But they were already gone, merging into late-night traffic. Just another black Honda in a city full of them. Anonymous, invisible, exactly what Maya had spent her whole life being. "Mission District," Dae-hyun said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Valencia Street. There's a restaurant called Lucky Dragon. Closed for renovation. Go to the back entrance, knock 3 times, pause, twice more. And if nobody answers, then we're both dead, and it won't matter." Maya drove, her knuckles white on the steering wheel, checking the rearview mirror every 3 seconds for signs of pursuit. The city slid past in a blur of streetlights and closed storefronts. Thursday night had turned into Friday morning without her noticing. And somewhere in that transition, Maya Williams had stopped being a maid and become something else entirely. A criminal, a fugitive, a woman who'd blown up a garage and stolen a car and broken a crime boss out of his own prison. Her phone buzzed. Marcus, another text. "Where are you?" Collectors came by again. Maya's chest tightened. She wanted to call him, to tell him to pack and leave, to warn him that her choices tonight had painted a target on their entire family. But she couldn't risk it, not yet, not until she knew if they were going to survive the next hour. Valencia Street appeared like a mirage. Lucky Dragon was exactly where Dae-hyun said it would be, windows covered in brown paper, a renovation notice taped to the front door. Maya drove past it once, checking for surveillance, then circled back and pulled into the alley behind. The back entrance was steel and unmarked. She helped Dae-hyun out of the car, his weight almost too much now, and knocked. 3 times. Pause. Twice more. Nothing happened. Maya's heart sank. She knocked again, the same pattern, louder this time. Still nothing. They were exposed in this alley, visible to anyone who looked, and dawn was maybe 2 hours away. Once the sun came up, hiding would become exponentially harder. Dae-hyun, Maya said quietly. Nobody's here. They're here. They're deciding if we're a trap. He lifted his head with visible effort and said something in Korean, his voice carrying authority even through the pain. Then he repeated it, louder. The door cracked open. An eye appeared, dark and suspicious, more Korean, rapid and questioning. Dae-hyun responded, his tone sharp. The door opened wider, revealing a woman maybe 60 years old, gray hair pulled back severely, wearing pajamas and holding a very large knife. She looked at Dae-hyun, at the chains, at the blood, then at Maya in her maid's uniform, this black woman supporting a wounded Korean crime boss in an alley at 3 in the morning. The woman said something that sounded like a question. Dae-hyun answered. The woman's expression shifted from suspicion to shock, to something that might have been fury. She wants to know if Shin-jae really betrayed you, Maya said, guessing based on tone. She knows he did. She's asking if I killed him yet. Dae-hyun straightened slightly, pulling together whatever reserves of strength he had left. Tell her no, but I will. The woman stepped aside, gesturing them in with the knife. Maya helped Dae-hyun through the door into a kitchen that smelled like ginger and old cooking oil. The woman locked the door behind them, 3 separate deadbolts sliding home. Then she turned and unleashed a torrent of Korean that needed no translation. She was furious, worried, relieved, all of it directed at Dae-hyun with the familiarity of family. My aunt, Dae-hyun explained to Maya, then winced as his aunt grabbed his face and examined his injuries, still talking in that rapid-fire mixture of anger and concern. She's saying I'm an idiot for trusting Shin-jae, that she told me years ago he was ambitious and loyalty doesn't survive ambition, that I look terrible and smell worse. She's not wrong. Maya watched as the aunt produced bolt cutters from somewhere and made short work of the chains binding Dae-hyun's wrists. The metal fell away with a final clatter, leaving red marks and raw skin. Tell her thank you for opening the door, for the bolt cutters, for not shooting us. Dae-hyun translated. His aunt looked at Maya properly for the first time, her dark eyes assessing in a way that made Maya feel suddenly visible. Then the aunt said something that made Dae-hyun actually laugh, a sound rough with pain but genuine. What? Maya asked. She said you must be very brave or very stupid to help me, and she hasn't decided which yet. But either way, you're welcome here. And anyone who helped her idiot nephew when his own people betrayed him is family now. Dae-hyun met Maya's eyes. You're safe. We both are. For now. Maya felt something break loose in her chest, a knot of tension she'd been holding since she first heard those 3 taps in the wine cellar. They'd made it, against impossible odds, through smoke and chemicals and stolen cars. They'd survived. She wanted to collapse, to cry, to sleep for a week. But there were still Marcus to protect, still Shin-jae to deal with. Still the security footage that would lead killers to her door by morning. What happens now? Maya asked. Dae-hyun's aunt was already moving, putting out medical supplies that made the mansion's first aid kit look like a joke. Real surgical equipment, IV bags, antibiotics, everything needed to treat serious trauma without involving hospitals. She barked something at Maya, gesturing impatiently. She wants you to help her treat my wounds, Dae-hyun translated. Says she's too old to hold me down if I pass out. And after that? After that, Dae-hyun said, his eyes hardening with something cold and final. We plan. Shin-jae thinks he's won. He thinks I'm dead or dying, and my organization is his. He's wrong. And by the time the sun comes up, he's going to understand exactly how wrong he is. The sun rose over San Francisco like a judgment, turning the sky from black to gray, to that particular gold that made the city look like it was worth all the pain it caused. Maya watched it through the small window above the kitchen sink, her hands wrapped around a cup of tea that Dae-hyun's aunt had pressed into them an hour ago. She hadn't slept, couldn't sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the barrel of that gun aimed at the Tesla's windshield, heard the sound of bullets punching through metal, felt the weight of Dae-hyun collapsing against her. Behind her, in what had been the restaurant's private dining room, Dae-hyun was sleeping. Finally, his aunt had stitched his wounds with the practiced efficiency of someone who'd done this too many times before, pumped him full of antibiotics, and ordered him to rest. He'd argued for maybe 30 seconds before his body made the decision for him and shut down. Maya had watched him sleep for a while, this dangerous man who looked almost peaceful when he wasn't calculating survival strategies. Her phone buzzed. Marcus again. The 5th message in 3 hours. Maya, where are you? These guys came back. They know where I go to school. Call me. Maya's hands tightened on the cup. She'd saved Dae-hyun's life, but in doing so, she'd endangered the only person who actually mattered to her. The debt collectors were getting aggressive because Maya had missed her usual payment. They didn't know she'd been busy committing multiple felonies. They didn't care. Money didn't care about excuses. You should answer him. Dae-hyun's aunt appeared beside her, moving with that silent grace that made Maya wonder what this woman had done before running a safe house disguised as a restaurant. Family worries. It's what we do. I don't know what to tell him. Maya's voice was rough from smoke inhalation and exhaustion. That I'm fine? That everything's going to be okay? I can't promise either of those things. Then tell him the truth, that you're alive and working on a solution. The aunt refilled Maya's tea. My nephew is many things, ruthless, calculating, sometimes too clever for his own good, but he pays his debts, always. If you saved his life, he will save your brother. This I know. Maya wanted to believe that, wanted to trust that this nightmare would somehow resolve into something manageable. But she'd spent too many years learning that trust was expensive and promises were cheap. What if Shin-jae finds us first? Then my nephew will do what he does best, survive, adapt, win. The aunt's voice was matter-of-fact, like they were discussing the weather instead of a gang war. You think he built an empire by being weak, by giving up when things got difficult. He was 12 years old when he came to this country with nothing. No family except me, no money, no language, just anger and ambition. Now look at him. He's a crime boss bleeding on your table. He's a king temporarily displaced from his throne. There's a difference. The aunt smiled, and it wasn't a nice smile. Shin-jae made a mistake. He left my nephew alive. That's the only mistake that matters. Movement from the dining room. Dae-hyun was awake, sitting up despite his aunt's certain disapproval, his phone pressed to his ear. He was speaking Korean, his voice low and intense. Maya watched as his expression shifted from focus to something darker. Rage, controlled and ice-cold. He ended the call and looked at Maya. We have a problem. Just one? Maya tried for humor and failed. Shin-jae knows you exist, He's seen the security footage. He has your name, your address, and a picture of your brother. Dae-hyun stood, moving carefully, his aunt immediately at his side, making disapproving noises. He's put out a contract. $50,000 for your location, $100,000 if they bring you in alive. The teacup slipped from Maya's hands, shattering on the tile floor. She didn't notice. Marcus, where's Marcus? Still safe, for now. I have people watching him. But Maya, you need to understand what this means. Shin-jae isn't just trying to cover his tracks. He's trying to prove a point. That anyone who helps me dies. That loyalty to me is a death sentence. Then I turn myself in. Maya's voice was steady, even though her hands weren't. I tell him I'll keep quiet, that I didn't see anything, that I was just a maid in the wrong place at the wrong time. He'll torture you for information and then kill you anyway. Dae-hyun crossed the room, moving into her space with that predator focus, and then he'll kill Marcus to make sure there are no loose ends. That's what I would do. That's what any competent leader would do. You're not a witness anymore, Maya. You're a symbol, and symbols have to be destroyed. Maya felt the walls closing in, all the careful invisibility she'd cultivated her entire life, stripped away by one night of choices. She'd been seen, really seen. And in Dae-hyun's world, being seen meant being targeted. So what do? We don't run, we don't hide, we attack. Dae-hyun's eyes were hard. Shin-jae thinks he's won because he has my organization. But an organization isn't buildings and accounts, it's people. And people have loyalties that run deeper than one ambitious sociopath can understand. His phone rang. He answered in Korean, listened, and something in his expression shifted. Not quite a smile, more like recognition. He hung up and looked at Maya with something that might have been respect. That was one of my lieutenants, the one who actually understands what loyalty means. He's been making calls, asking questions, and it turns out half my people didn't know about the coup. They thought I really was in Seoul. Now they know the truth, and they're not happy about being lied to. So you have support. I have options. Support needs to be earned back. But yes, people are choosing sides, and not everyone is choosing Shin-jae. Dae-hyun gestured to his aunt, who pulled out a laptop and opened it on the kitchen table. The estate where you found me. It's not just Shin-jae's base now. It's his statement. He's planning a gathering tonight. All the key players in the organization. A show of force to prove he's in control. That's where you'll hit him. That's where we'll remind everyone who actually built this empire. Dae-hyun pulled up blueprints on the laptop. The same mansion Maya had cleaned just hours ago. You know this house better than anyone. Every service entrance, every hidden passage, every place where someone invisible could move without being seen. Maya stared at the blueprints, understanding what he was asking. You want me to go back there? Tonight? When it's full of armed men who want me dead? I want you to be what you've always been, a ghost. Someone they don't see until it's too late. Dae-hyun's voice was calm, reasonable, like he wasn't asking her to walk back into hell. My people will handle the assault, but we need someone inside to unlock doors, to disable security, to create the kind of chaos that gives us the advantage. And if I say no, then I'll find another way. Send you and Marcus somewhere far from here with new names and enough money to start over. You'll spend the rest of your life looking over your shoulder, but you'll be alive. He met her eyes. But I don't think you'll say no. Maya thought about that, about running, about being invisible again, about Marcus growing up knowing his sister was a coward who'd saved a criminal, but wouldn't finish what she'd started. She thought about the woman she'd been yesterday, scrubbing toilets and accepting invisibility as the price of survival. Then she thought about the woman she'd been tonight, mixing chemical weapons and stealing cars, and refusing to leave a chained man to die. "If I do this," Maya said slowly, "I want more than money. I want out, really out. My brother goes to college with a full ride that you arrange. I get job training for something that doesn't involve cleaning up other people's messes, and you make absolutely certain that no one ever comes looking for either of us again. Done. I'm not finished. I also want Shin-jae to know why he lost. I want him to know that the invisible maid he never bothered to look at was the reason his entire coup fell apart. I want him to see me before the end." Dae-hyun studied her face, and slowly, inevitably, he smiled. "You're not just remarkable, Maya Williams. You're dangerous. That's better." His aunt said something in Korean that made Dae-hyun laugh outright, despite the pain it caused his ribs. Maya looked between them. "What?" "She says you remind her of me at your age, angry and brilliant, and too stubborn to know when to quit." Dae-hyun extended his hand. "Partners?" Maya looked at his hand, at the raw marks where the chains had been, at the blood under his fingernails that might have been his, or might have been from the beating he'd taken. She thought about all the hands she'd shaken in her life, employers who paid minimum wage, debt collectors who smiled while threatening her family, people who saw her uniform and never bothered to see her face. This hand was different. This hand belonged to a man who'd spent 20 years building power, who'd been betrayed by the people closest to him, and who was trusting a maid he'd known for 6 hours to help him take it all back. This hand was offering her a chance to stop being invisible, to matter, to be seen not as a ghost, but as a person who could change the course of a war. Maya took his hand. Partners. Dae-hyun's aunt made an approving sound and immediately started pulling out more equipment. Tactical gear, communication devices, a handgun that she pressed into Maya's hands with instructions in broken English about safety and aiming. The sun was fully up now, turning the kitchen gold, and somewhere across the city, Shin-jae was consolidating power that he thought was secure. He was wrong. And tonight, a black maid from a rough neighborhood and a Korean crime boss with nothing left to lose were going to teach him exactly how wrong he was. "One question," Maya said, as Dae-hyun's aunt fitted her with a communication earpiece. "After tonight, when this is over and you're back in power, and I'm starting this new invisible life you're promising, are we going to be okay? You and me?" Dae-hyun looked at her for a long moment. "I spent my entire life surrounded by people who wanted something from me. Power, money, status, protection. You're the first person in 20 years who helped me because it was the right thing to do. Not the smart thing, not the profitable thing, the right thing." He adjusted the earpiece, his fingers gentle despite the violence in his eyes. "Yeah, Maya, we're going to be okay." His phone buzzed. He checked it, and his expression hardened. "It's time. Shin-jae just sent out the invitation for tonight, 8 p.m., the estate. Everyone who matters in my organization will be there, including us." Maya thought about Marcus, about her mother who'd taught her that helping people was never the wrong choice, even when it cost you everything, about the invisible life she'd been living that had felt like slow suffocation. She thought about the next 8 hours and what they would require of her. Then she thought about what came after. Freedom. Real freedom. The kind you earned by walking through fire and coming out transformed. "Then we'd better get ready," Maya said. Because tonight, the ghosts are taking back the haunted house. If you've made it this far, you already know what happens when an invisible woman decides to be seen. Drop a comment below, telling us where you're watching from and what time it is right now. We reply to every single comment because you're part of this story too. Subscribe and hit that notification bell because Maya and Dae-hyun's war is just beginning, and you don't want to miss what happens when the king reclaims his throne and the maid becomes a queen. This is just the start.